And we're live.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, everybody. It's Jonathan Harmon with the J. Harmon Home Team, powered by Keller Williams. And here on Spread the Positive Network, my buddy Trent Denton back there off camera. How's it going, Trent?
Doing well, sir.
Have you had a good week?
Yeah, been great.
Anything exciting happened this week?
Not yet, but
There's still time.
Yeah, a lot of time left.
There's still time.
A lot of time left.
And before we get going with my very special guest, I want to give a quick shout out to Mr. Bryan Nale with First Horizon Mortgage that helps us underwrite this show. And you know Bryan, don't you?
I do, and I think his card's changing again.
Yes, that's what I heard. It's what, like next year, but still. Yeah. So Bryan Nale, love that guy. Does a phenomenal job on mortgages and loves to help spread the positive. So good dude there. Likes to bring light to what's going right. Did I do it right that time?
Nailed it.
Yes. I always mess that up. But anyway, I get the right idea. It's just the wrong words, story of my life. Yeah. I don't know how to write songs like that. I don't know what words to use, but
sorry, that got me good.
Yeah, I figured it might. So my friend Trent, if you don't know this about Trent is a hip hop aficionado. So if I can throw a few lyrics in there every now and then, he'll, it'll get him.
That, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got my friend Bobby Hopkins here. Bobby is a man all over town in Rutherford County and various other things. And I've been bugging Bobby now for, I don't know, 3 years to get you on my podcast. And the first 2 times that I asked you, you flat said no. Just there was no explanation, just no. And that's what I like about you, is there's really no question as to it's just no. And it's not, you don't have to make excuses.
Right.
It's just no. And that was okay.
It's a complete sentence, right?
It really is. It's a really short, complete sentence. Yeah. It's concise.
Yeah.
Right. What just happened there, Trent?
Checking.
Okay, making sure we had sound. And Bobby, we're in Rotary Club together, and getting to know Bobby through the years that I've been in the club, I've grown to really appreciate your, I guess, just the way you do things and the way that you handle people and the way you associate with people, and absolutely 100% with a servant's heart. And you've been the president of the club. That was 3 years ago now. Is that right? 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yeah. So Robert, Amanda, you.
Right.
Okay. I had to make sure. That whole 2020 thing just threw everything off, and like my entire year count is off.
Right.
Well,
yeah. It was a challenging year, to say the least, when all that broke loose.
No doubt about it. So Bobby, let's start with just some of the stuff about you, and then we'll get to the fun stuff. Not that learning about you isn't fun. I didn't say that exactly. Like I'm a little nervous. This guy is awesome. So anyway, it's rare that I'm nervous, but so you're wearing a bright green shirt. So you are associated in some way, shape, or form with Cricket Wireless, right? How is that?
That's right. I'm an owner of 5 Cricket authorized retail stores. So to sell phones for Cricket or most any other brand, you do that by contract. And it's not a franchise. It's a different kind of model. But I've been in that business for about 30 years. So,
oh, wow.
But just the last 10 under the Cricket brand.
Gotcha. And you said 5 stores. They're all over Rutherford County, right?
Got 2 in Rutherford County, and then I've got 1 in Shelbyville, 1 in Lewisburg, and 1 in Lebanon. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Oh, it's kind of spread out a little bit. Okay. And so you do that, and you have a few other ventures as well. I know you have gotten into the rental property business a little bit. True. I've got 3 units right now, a duplex, and then two houses. And then that's been a learning curve.
For sure.
And I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed learning about how that business works. I've had some good mentors, you being one of them, that have guided me as I've looked at that part of my portfolio.
What would you say? And I think you started buying rental properties at this point, maybe 4 years ago, somewhere around there. What would you say, and especially in this current market, what would you say has been the biggest, what's the word? Lesson is not the right word that I'm looking for, but thing that you thought before you started acquiring rental properties, and what you think about that now that you have changed your mind on?
I guess the thing that I probably thought the most about, I have a legal education, and I have a license to practice law.
I forgot about that.
And I guess I thought people sign a lease, and they either pay or you go to court. And there is a whole rainbow of communication that. And the last thing that you ever want to do is take a tenant to court. It's just not worth it. There are so many other things that you need to do too. And I, I also found that if I relate to them, if they've got a problem and they share that problem with me, it becomes my responsibility to help them solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't look at it that way, but I do. And I think that helped me during the downturn when people were out of work and people were trying to figure things out, was that I looked on them as a partner in my business, even though they were a tenant.
Sure. Yeah. I love that. I tend to approach it the same way, that, you're helping them with something, but they're helping you with something simultaneously. And you guys are working together to achieve not, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, it's not a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't have to win.
There's not a bad guy and a good guy.
Right.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think a lot of folks approach that what I would consider the wrong way. Maybe it works for them, but I try to work with my tenants when there's bad stuff that happens, and it does happen sometimes. So yeah, that's good. With the wireless store, that is fascinating to me. So you said you've been in that business for 30 years.
Yeah.
What a stupid question I'm about to ask, but how has that changed in 30 years time? My goodness. You probably sold pagers.
I did. I sold pagers. I worked for Melanie Davenport. I'm sure you know.
I know
Melanie.
Mel. Yeah.
I worked for her. I think I went to work for her about 6 or 8 months after she opened her business.
Wow.
And we sold phones and pagers. At the time, the whole business had to get to 66 activations. Right. That was the magic number per month.
Okay.
To make a certain amount of money. And so the last couple of days, boy, we'd be calling friends, we'd be calling family, trying to do those last few activations. And pretty quickly in that business, over the span of, I'd say 5 years, you would have 1 week where you would do 66 activations yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just grew so exponentially. And everybody came in looking to invest in a cell phone for emergencies. Well, that's not what anybody actually was doing, but that was the line that they all brought up to justify why they needed this new phone.
Sure. I remember when I was in college, I had a roommate. This would have been 1998, and I didn't own a cell phone. I had a pager, because I was cool.
Right.
And I remember going with him. He lived in Atlanta. We went down and visited his parents, and his mom had a phone that was the emergency cell phone.
Mm.
And she said, now put this in the glove box and because we went into Atlanta. We actually went to Peachtree City, and then we went into Atlanta.
Right.
And she said, take this with you, put it in the glove box, but don't use it unless it's an emergency. It's only got 100 minutes on it for the entire month. And then they got really expensive after that. That was the first time I'd ever held a cell phone, let alone used one. Now I'm a little bit of a late adopter. So, it's 98. There was plenty of people using cell phones at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll never forget that. And he stuck it in the glove box, and we didn't touch it.
Yeah. I can tell you, the phones that we had used to, they did trade-ins on phones, and
new really, every two, right?
Yeah. And really, really late, when the smartphones all came out, you would still occasionally have somebody come in that was from some small town, and they had a bag phone that they had.
No way.
Oh yeah. It was just
a bag phone. I thought you were going to say like the little Nokia, the blue, and all the way to a bag phone.
Yeah.
Man, they were super cool. This isn't the same, but my grandfather, I'll never forget. We went and picked him up at the airport back when you could still walk all the way to the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And he handed me a briefcase, and it looked like in the movies, one of those like money briefcases. You thought it should have a handcuff thing on it. And he goes, don't you lose that. That's my money. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was, I don't know, 10, 12, somewhere around there. And we got to the house, and he goes, you can open my money now. And I opened it, and it was a freaking camcorder that sat on your shoulder.
Oh, nice.
Like old school big VHS tape. Yeah, that was his money in the briefcase.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. So what made you decide to go into business for yourself? How did you worked for Mel for a while.
Mm-hmm.
How did you make that transition, both financially and mentally and with resolve? Like, how did you acquire that? What drove you to do that?
Yeah, I grew up in a house where my parents were both in business for themselves. And so I knew a whole lot of the pitfalls, and the negative side, but I always felt drawn to be in business for myself. I had done some things. I'd done some advertising specialty items that I set up in a little business, and done other things over the years. And in 2012 or 2013, I had been working at the time for Sprint and was managing people who do what I do now.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife had a bout with cancer, and it was really, really serious at one point. And she and I had been talking through this, going into business for myself. I'd written a business plan. I talked to the bankers. I mean, I was ready to pull the trigger when this thing happened. And,
mm-hmm.
and she looked at me one evening at home with tears in her eyes and said, "I can't be the reason you don't follow your dream. You need to go do this." And so in the midst of that and that personal crisis, I quit my corporate job with my free car and all the other perks that went along with it, and went into business for myself.
Health insurance.
Yeah.
And
it was crazy. It was a crazy decision to look back on it. And it was the best decision I ever made.
Mm-hmm.
It completely changed both our lives. And of course, as you know, she has a happy ending to her
That's
cancer story. But yeah, that was finally, it was a point of crisis that led me to finally make the decision.
Isn't that pretty common though?
I think it is.
I mean, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, that you hit a moment where there's the cliche straw, and it breaks the back, and what else are you going to do?
Right.
And you're at that point. And, for me, I lost my job. I didn't quit my job. And it was like, okay, this is a moment. This is a moment right now where I can decide. I can go back and try to find another job
mm-hmm.
where there's quote unquote job security, even though I just got fired.
Right.
Right. Or I can rely on me, and on the relationships that I'd already built, and on the skills that I'd already required, and the ones that I was willing to acquire going forward. And that's scary, isn't it?
It is scary. And I have a good friend and a bit of a mentor to me who he asked me why I wanted to go into business for myself. And I said, well, I want to have control. And he said, no, you don't. He said, what you want is the illusion of control. He said, because
so
being in business for yourself does not put you in control. And I thought about it ever since he said those words to me. And that's true. You have the illusion of control, and maybe you're able to shift your time and so forth. You're not at the mercy of somebody saying, show up at this time to this time, and I'll trade you your time for some money.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have any more control than you do at anything else.
No. The only thing that I would say that you do have control over is how hard are you going to work,
right?
And how are you going to be incentivized for that work,
right?
And you make that, you gain that control through the decisions that you make, and the doors that you open and the doors that you close, quite honestly.
Right.
I look at it like this. I can't be fired now unless I fire me. Now I can lose a client, right? I can screw something up and lose a deal.
Right.
You can lose a client. You can lose a big contract client potentially, right? You can close a store, right? Which is sort of like firing yourself in a way.
Right.
But ultimately that's still your decision.
That's true.
So, but I also found that where I had, I was a teacher, right? An administrator that was my boss. Now I have as many bosses as I can take in at a time.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So you got the Cricket stores up and running. Those are, doing well. Cricket's a great company as far as I know. You're doing well with that. Why in the world would you jump into the rental game to go along with that?
Well, I've always tried to think in blocks of time. I've always made goals at 5 years, and then I work backwards from a 5-year goal to what will I do this week to achieve that 5-year goal. And at some point, there may not be retail cellular phone stores.
True.
If you'd gone back 20 years ago when I was working in this business, said, do you think there'll still be these stores in 20 years? I would have said no. When we realized what Amazon was doing, I would have said, no, they're not going to exist. They're going to come up with a way to do it. But for whatever reason, a store like mine outperforms every other channel. It outperforms a company-owned store. It outperforms a Best Buy type situation, and it outperforms online.
Is it a public trust thing, you think? I'm curious about that. What's your speculation on that?
I wish I knew. I think that part of it is that there are still things, and I think the phones continue to be so complex that having somebody that you can sit down and really spend time with, who doesn't need to go to another department and sell a TV or something else along those lines. I think that's appealing to.
It is to me. I want to touch it and feel it and bend it and everything else before I buy it.
But we all buy TVs and have them shipped to us now, and arguably that's a more complex.
Yeah, but think about that. I see what you're saying, but what is this is going to sound super weird, okay?
Okay.
But we don't have the same kind of relationship with our TV as we do with our phone.
That's true. And
I mean, you think about that. If you lost your phone today, like you left it in here and you walked out the door and Trent locked the door on this studio and you couldn't get it till tomorrow, would you be uncomfortable with that? I would be uncomfortable.
The average consumer would. I'd have another phone in 10 minutes because I'd go to the store and transfer all my stuff over.
But you do that in 10 minutes because it would be an uncomfortable 10 minutes.
That's right. I mean, I even when we travel, I have a phone with me so that should we lose a phone on the road, we can call back and just switch it over.
That's crazy. But it's a perk of what you do.
It's a perk of what I do. That's right.
It's crazy enough that it sounds like a great idea. I might do that myself.
Just keep your last phone.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I've never thought about that idea.
It'd change your life if you're in another city and you need that.
Yeah,
phone because you no longer have GPS. You no longer have a paper map. You no longer have tickets to anything that you've bought.
Right.
You no longer have reservations. Some people don't even have any more credit cards. It's all internalized.
That's what I'm saying. Your relationship with that device right there is way different than it is with a television.
Granted.
So I don't know. Speculation.
I wish I could figure it out because there's money to be made in figuring out whoever's going to disrupt that model.
And that's ultimately what it is, right? It's a market of disruptions.
Mm-hmm.
The iPhone disrupted everything. And then you could argue that everybody else, even now, still follows. I know Android users, I know whatever, but they still follow iPhone. And then every now and then Samsung will put something out that disrupts it a little bit, like the little foldy thing, you know? Okay. But it's a fold. It's not an entire market disruption like the iPhone was to the cell phone industry.
Well, if you look at innovation in the cell phone industry, Motorola and Google's buyout of Motorola and their patent, they had over 600 patents related to the smartphone, and the things they did with that Android operating system have been what has pushed Apple to integrate those things. Every time Apple comes out with a new device, your Android users have had that particular feature sometimes as long as 2 years ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
What Samsung and so many other phone manufacturers have never figured out is how to be the marketing geniuses that Apple is.
Mm-hmm.
Apple's not a technology company. They might wish they were, but they're not. They're a marketing company. Go look at their big Apple store up on Broadway.
Oh, I know.
I mean, imagine what the rent is for that. What do you think they pay in there?
I have I mean, it's
$500,000 a month, probably.
It's very possible. Yeah. And do they sell enough out of that store to actually justify that? Or is that essentially a loss leader just for visibility?
Well, when you go by, it's like a cool breeze blowing through your car to look at how serene that store is and how nice it looks. Because they're a marketing company.
It is. Yeah, it's 100% right. So you get into, we started on this and then we went down a different road. Why did you get into the rental market?
To me, the rental market, number one, looked like a win-win. Okay. So if you buy a piece of property, they're not making any more land. So you own the underlying land.
They actually do in Dubai. It's pretty incredible.
Well, yeah, but I get your point. You get mine as well. So that there's that piece of it. You're owning something that you will own until you choose to sell it. You have to be paying no attention at all, not to realize how things are appreciating in Rutherford County and Tennessee in general. So there's going to be an inherent appreciation of your asset. And it seemed to me that being a landlord was something that I had a unique set of skills to be able to do. I understood the legal part of it. I understood that piece of the puzzle. I've had to have a lot of folks that have been in the property side of it educate me, and I've had a banker that has worked really hard to educate me and help me understand some things that I can do to fine tune that business. But my plan is in another 5 years, that's what I'm doing. That's my full-time gig. And that'll be what I'll do as a retired person, though I don't think I'll ever retire.
That's a nebulous word, isn't it? Retire. What does that mean exactly?
If you look in the Bible does not talk about retirement at all. And that's where I try to take my guide from. And so I don't figure I need to even think about it. I just need to keep on keeping on.
Like, I don't even know what that would look like for me, and I mean, you're a little bit older than me, not a lot, but a little bit. But you're a little closer to retirement than I am. Let's put it that way.
Fair.
Age wise, right? Like
right.
the traditional retirement age. But I mean, I sit around and I hear people even my age and younger. Oh, I can't wait to retire. I don't even know how I would do that. Like, I don't understand that concept.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop with my rental properties. I'm not going to, as long as I can, I'm not going to stop with the businesses that I own.
I think you get to a point and I think you get to a point where you want to slow some things down, though. It's not that, I'm to that point now. You made a joke about me saying no when you asked me to be on the podcast, but I've learned and I say no to things on an almost weekly basis. And I don't feel the need to give an explanation. And it's not for wanting to retire, but it is for wanting to simplify my life and really, really dig into the things that I think are important and really, really lean into relationships. And so that to me is what, quote, retirement age looks like.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about learning to protect their time and their priorities, right? And it's weird because we're such an independent culture, right? The United States in general is super independent, get out of my face, don't, all the things. But yet we have a hard time telling people no a lot of times. And we feel bad for protecting our own time, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a weird one to me. I've never understood that.
Well, you get to a point where that becomes a priority. We've got a new puppy in our house that is 12 weeks old and keeping us up all night every night. But we're in this class and the puppy trainer made a point of saying, when people ask you if they can pet your dog, look them in the eye and say, no, we're training. Everybody doesn't have to touch your dog. And I thought, gosh, that's kind of an epiphany.
That's liberating, isn't it?
Yes, just say, no, we're training it, because that's what you're really literally trying to do with your puppy, is train them the proper way to meet somebody and not
jump on them.
Yeah. And she said, you're never going to see those people again. It doesn't matter if you say no.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, I just learned something in puppy class.
Absolutely. So guys, say no to petting somebody else's dog. It's okay. Whatever figure of speech that might represent, whatever what's the metaphor,
right?
That you want to put on there. So what's next? What are some other things that Bobby Hopkins wants to do?
I'm really focused on finding an Airbnb or a VRBO type property. I've looked extensively in Gatlinburg, and it's hard to find the right property up there. And I think that's a logical thing to add to a portfolio of properties. And I'm going to continue to work at this cricket thing as long as these stores keep holding out and doing well. And then I'll start looking around for other volunteer work that's vital and meaningful to me. I do a lot of work now with the chamber, and I love doing that and meeting people. And
I heard you were the chief diplomat. Is that right?
I don't know if I would go with chief, but I am one among many.
I will tell you this: if you ask Kelly Beam, if you cut into Kelly Beam time for Bobby Hopkins, Kelly likes me, except for when I do that.
Right.
Well, yeah. So I got it, Kelly. I got it. I'm gonna let him go here in just a minute. Why an Airbnb? Like what is appealing about that to you? Because I have two, and they will definitely keep you up at night more than the long-term rentals.
I think that the appeal to me, the biggest appeal is that the leisure market compared to a particular rental market. So let's say the government decides that they're going to do something crazy with rent, like say you don't have to pay it and the landlord can't throw you out, and you're over leveraged.
Crazy. Who would do that?
I know, right? But let's say you're over leveraged and you don't have the ability to withstand that going on for a year or 2 years or however long it might go on. To me, those two balance each other out. So if I've got a rental property in the Gatlinburg area or something at the beach, I've still got some income coming in. I'm very, very conservative. My friend Eric, that I meet with on a regular basis, continually criticizes me because I'm not more bold, but I don't want to be awake at night worrying about how I pay bills.
Sure.
I had those times when I was younger, starting out and trying to figure that out. And I don't want that. I don't want to rob myself of that peace.
How do you pick a property? What's your criteria?
First, Brett will tell you that it has to be brick, and I want 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and that's really the criteria that he usually sends me. I don't know. I just get a feeling about them. Sometimes when I look at them, I think this is a great area that it's in. It looks like it's been well kept. I've got 2 or 3 people that I've sent to properties before to look at and tell me how much money I might have to put in it. So that's a criteria that I look at. As far as an Airbnb, you can find all kind of statistics that show you what that has rented for in the past, and so that's really what I'm looking at real hard with that piece of the.
Would you ever acquire a property that has not been an Airbnb and attempt to turn it into an Airbnb, like really ford the river, so to speak?
I might. Again, you can look at a lot of those in East Tennessee, and I've looked at a number of them. They market them that way, and they'll show you the proximity to the attractions, and there's a I don't know what the app is, but there's an app that you can use where Airbnb will give you what they expect your revenue to be. Sorry. And so that's another piece that I would look at and consider.
How hard is it for you to say no to a property? If Brett or somebody else is saying, "Oh man, dude, this is the property," but you just have that gut feeling, how hard is that? Because to me, that's the hardest lesson to learn is you got to say no 200 times before you get to a yes for one that makes sense. Not in this market, but
that's what I was going to say. At this point, I don't get the opportunity to say no 200 times. Everything that I do, no matter what business that I've looked at, no matter what investment somebody wants me to make, I got to go home and explain it to my wife. And there are times, for instance, when CBD was big, I was approached to open some CBD stores.
You wouldn't even need to change your shirt color.
Right. But I went home and I started explaining it to her, and she just kept giving me this perplexed look. And if I can't sell her on it, and I don't try to talk her into it, but if I can't explain it to her so that she sees it, it's a no. And that's the same thing with the property. I show her the property. I bump it up against a crime heat map. I tell her where it's located. Sometimes we ride by, sometimes we don't. And at some point she'll go, okay. Or she'll say, I just don't feel good about that. And,
I love that.
Yeah. And that makes us a good team.
Yeah.
Because if I don't believe in it enough to be able to explain it to her, I'm fooling myself. I'm getting excited when I shouldn't be.
Yeah. Not to mention that if it fails, you are in deep, deep water right there.
Truth.
That's awesome. All right, man. Let's talk real quick about Rotary Club.
Okay.
So obviously you've been a Rotarian for a long time, longer than me. And I think, why Rotary? There's lots of service organizations out there. Why did you choose to join Rotary Club?
You know, I went through one of my periodic times when I set goals for myself, and I guess I was 37, 38 years old. And one of the goals that I set then was to change the trajectory of how I spent my time. That's the way I wrote it. And I first approached the church about things that I wanted to do. You know, if we needed to go build a set of stairs on somebody's house, church is a good place to go. You can find some guys that will go help you do it, and they'll knock it out. You want to fund a trip to go put electricity in a village in Honduras, church is not a good place to go because it's not what they're set up to do. It's not their primary mission, and they don't always understand.
Unless that is their primary mission, and that's not every church.
Right.
But
when I looked at the landscape, you know, the Rotary Club afforded an opportunity to be involved in a wide range of worthy projects, and to multiply my efforts in a way that nothing else did. And I just, you know, at the time I lived in Murfreesboro, and I just got lucky that I went to the Smyrna Club, and that group of people resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I joined. And
who sponsored you into the club?
Joel Parks.
I love Joel.
It's funny because I was going through Leadership Rutherford with the chamber, and talked to somebody in there that was a Rotarian, and she got me to put the application in. But Joel was who wound up sponsoring me because she was on her way out and was moving to a different job. So
yeah, I actually went and talked to Joel, does my personal accounting, and
Mm-hmm.
I went and spoke to him. I haven't seen him in a long time. I forgot how tall that joker is.
Yeah.
Good Lord. I was standing there looking at him like this, trying to talk about whether or not I should buy a car and whatever. And anyway, it was very intimidating.
He lives across the street from me. So
yeah,
I know when he's up in the middle of the night watching TV.
Gotcha. All right. So I'm going to mention one more thing, and then we'll close it out. So you had a very interesting odyssey last year that was quite hilarious for those of us that were watching it unfold on Facebook. So it probably wasn't quite as hilarious to you.
Right.
Getting a swimming pool built, and it took a while.
It did take a while. It took over 11 months.
Mm-hmm.
They set a number of deadlines that they were unable to keep. Some of it was, you know, the fault of supply chain issues. Some of it was the other fault. And the really funny thing, people kept saying, we should just sue them. I'm like, I want a pool. If I do that, I'll never get a pool.
Right. Well, I think the funniest thing about that, and when I really became a Bobby Hopkins fan, and I already was anyway, but rather than getting mad, and I'm sure you got mad a few times, but rather than publicly, I can't believe, you know, whatever, you made it a pretty hilarious saga that unfolded with the daily picture of, you know, I remember the worker sleeping on the edge of the pool. And I mean, there was all kinds of stuff that was, I'm just sitting here going, oh my word, how is he still laughing about this?
Well, you know, I knew by that point in the process, if I could get a pool liner All the rest of this stuff I can do myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I had already figured out how the pool worked, and all the equipment they brought it, all the the big stuff. So anyway, it was very interesting. They got us open the week after Memorial Day, and I bet we swam in that pool 150 times over the next few months.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. All right, man. Hey, I appreciate you, and I appreciate the example that you give to younger Rotarians. I have sat in board meetings with you, and I have gotten heated sometimes, and I've said things that I probably shouldn't have said, and you've just been like, pulled me aside. And you mentioned this before, some emails, hey, man, you probably need to pull back just a little bit and, just stay even keeled. You're a good dude, and you're a good example of how to be a good dude. I don't know how else to say that.
Thank you, Jonathan.
So, go visit Cricket stores, 2 in Rutherford County.
2 in Rutherford County. Yep.
2 in Shelbyville.
1 in Shelbyville, 1 in Lewisburg, 1 in Lebanon.
Lewisburg, that's the one. Where is Lewisburg?
Lewisburg, south of Shelbyville, down kind of near Columbia.
That's where oh my goodness. Philip George's.
It's also where Bobby Hopkins is from.
That's where you're from? And that's where the winery is.
Yeah.
Pickers Creek. Yeah. So good stuff. All right, man. Hey, if you guys have any questions for Bobby, hit him up. If I'm sure he would answer just about anything.
Sure.
Or he would just say no. and that's okay. So one more quick shout out to Mr. Bryan Nale over at First Horizon Mortgage. Thank you again for underwriting us, Bryan. And to my friend Trent Denson back there behind the cameras. Hey, Trent.
Hey there.
And always doing a good job in here at Spread the Positive Studios. We've got next month, not this month, but be paying attention. Next month, we'll be having another meet and greet and networking event here at Cedar Glade for Spread the Positive to sponsor and host. It's going to be a lot of fun. But if you are interested in telling your story, if you want to do it with me, that'd be cool. Let's schedule a time. If you want to do it on your own and you want to start your own podcast, that's cool too. Let's schedule some time to talk about that. So join us up here at Spread the Positive. Lots of stuff going well, isn't it, buddy?
Yes, sir.
All
Lots
right.
of exciting things.
You guys have a great week. We'll talk to you again real soon.